Produced by the Cleveland Sound Radio Network. Here is the This Is Awesome Wrestling Show.
This is Awesome Wrestling Show. I'm Glenn Moore, and joining me this week is a very special guest. And to coincide with House of Hardcore coming here to Cleveland, Ohio, we want to bring on the ECW legend, original, a man that has left his mark in wrestling, still leaving his mark in wrestling, Tommy Dreamer. Tommy, thank you so much for joining the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right, like I said, House of Hardcore coming here to Cleveland. You know, I've never been to a House of Hardcore show, and this is your first time bringing the show to Cleveland, correct?
Yes.
And so I talked to Danny Doring and asked him the question what to expect for a House of Hardcore show. So I want to hear from the man himself that runs the show. What can fans here in Cleveland expect when they come to a House of Hardcore show?
I kind of want them to experience stuff that I've got to experience. One, that's a fan, where I will continue to say professional wrestling is the greatest form of entertainment out there. And two, it has given me so many amazing memories that I got to live live with the original ECW. And I want people to go back and be like, wow, I saw this. Or I got to be there live for that. Excuse me, I have a cold. And but it's just, I remember my greatest memories, with my father was, going to wrestling the first time I saw the Road Warriors debut up in, the NWA, first time they ever came up here, and then, going and seeing amazing stuff in the original ECW, not only doing it, but also as a fan as well, seeing Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko just tear it up wrestling. It's kind of what I like to have people say when they come to my events of, wow, I was there. And, it's so far been working out for me.
And obviously with your name, being an ECW original in that era, in the 90s, early 2000s, and now with House of Hardcore, it kind of has that, obviously has hardcore in the name, but it's more than just tables and different kitchen utensils in the ring. It's wrestling. It's professional wrestling. And if fans are expecting an ECW show, I think they would be disappointed, correct?
Yes. The word hardcore and the word extreme has been exploited by WWE to promote DVDs, and I get it. But if you think about, to me, hardcore is a work ethic. Hardcore is going out there and doing everything what it takes to have a great match. And anyone that came through ECW was a great wrestler, and like I talked about Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, Sabu, Rob Van Dam, Tommy Dreamer, Rhino. We were all really good wrestlers. And so I get what they did it. And yes, we had a ton of blood, but you know what? Blood has been involved in wrestling forever. If you're at an indie show and you see a guy that's bleeding, I think it's stupid, because I don't think any indie company blood tests. And, but back what we did in ECW was a lot different. Half of it was illegal. There will be, there should never be a chair shot to anyone's head in 2016, because there's something called concussions. But we just go out there and we tear it up. I mean, and that's what I've been doing. And I think, the best part for me is my relationship with the fans. And they know I go still at 45, I go all out. And that's kind of what they expect from the roster that I put together.
Yeah, it's you get a lot of established men that come back. Hardcore Holly, Bob Holly, EC3 top of his game at TNA, and then you're bringing up especially here in Cleveland, people know Johnny Gargano, his wife Candice LeRae will be competing for you. Jessica Havoc, who has made her way. So a lot of Northeast Ohio connections. Son of Havoc for Lucha Underground will be competing for you. So a lot of local guys that are making their mark, and they're known, internationally, but also they're not on the main stage. And that was my next question. I feel like now, there is a resurgence with the indie scene, and okay, if you're not in WWE, it doesn't mean you can't make it. It doesn't mean you can make a lot of money, selling merch or going overseas, New Japan, and, competing for local indie scenes that are, like Ring of Honor, you guys, Lucha Underground, PWG, some big time companies. It does feel that way now because you don't have to be WWE to be quote unquote made it. You can make your own mark, make your schedule, and still live very comfortably.
Yes. I know myself. I wrestled 180 dates in 2015. And yes, I did go back to WWE for a little bit, but think of that. And I'm 45 years old and, I don't want to say semi-retired, but I left WWE for a lighter schedule. There's guys out there like a Joey Ryan, a Colt Cabana. I see these people's names everywhere. Sami Callihan, before he went back to WWE, Rhino, Matt Hardy. They're out there wrestling all the time. And, now with social media, fans can also see, oh, wow, I didn't know this person was here. Or, oh, wow, I didn't know, this person, is going there. I know for me, my schedule alone, I just wrestled Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I got home Sunday. I fly to Japan on Thursday. I fly to Japan Wednesday. I get there, it's Thursday. I wrestle Friday, I wrestle Saturday. I come back home, it's Sunday. And then I go from there to Italy, land, wrestle, come back home. And then right from there, I have my whole House of Hardcore week for Cleveland and Pittsburgh. But that's almost everybody's schedule. England is on fire. The UK scene is really, really hot. So, yes, WWE is signing a lot of those guys. But, they also have, they're a publicly traded company. They have budgets. And you can sign everybody who's hot on the indies. And then guess what? The system gets replenished by Alberto Del Rio, gets out of WWE and all stuff like that. So it's cool because that's how the business is. But yes, I've always used established guys as well as non-established guys. And I mean, everyone on my card, I have to say, is established because there's very few people that people don't know. But I mean, that's what I got from ECW in the early days of ECW. We had, Terry Funk and Shane Douglas as our names who came from, WCW. But, Shane Douglas wasn't known as a mainstay in the business. And, here he was carrying the company. And then there was all these unknown people named Sabu, Taz, Sandman, Public Enemy, and we kind of became our own stars, and had great careers.
And I love the indie scene. I'm very hardcore with it. We're here in Cleveland with AIW, and it's nice to see guys that get let go by WWE, and there's no swan song. Obviously, they want to be at the highest competition, but these guys are they leave on their own terms, or they get future endeavor, whatever the case is. They can go the indie scene. They can make the international rounds and still, like I said, make a living, still be wanted by the public, and still make appearances. And I feel like 2001. When WWE bought WCW and ECW, shortly after, if a guy left one of those big three, it was like, where do I do now?
Yes. And, it crumbled. There was also a lot of crappier indie companies that were around. Everyone thought they could be the next, ECW, the little engine that could, or, even still today, everyone thinks they're going to be the next Vince McMahon. You're not. Be happy. I'm a huge sports fan. Let's say the Yankees are the most recognizable sports franchise. I'm okay being the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, or I'm okay being, a smaller market team, because you know what? We have our fans. We have our audiences come out to support us, as well as the Yankees don't always win the championship every single year, and it's okay. Don't ever look to try to beat them, be your own identity. And a perfect example is AIW. They go out there, they have their own little crowd, they have their own little shows, and they have their own fan base in Cleveland. And hey, that's what we had in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And it grew and grew and grew. And now you can have more eyes upon your product with putting it out there on social media, putting it out there on, if you have a YouTube channel or stuff like that. It's the business changes, times change, and I think that's why we've had a resurgence of stuff. And if people, as well as promoters, go out there, promote the way to promote, pay the wrestlers, I think it's an even exchange.
And with yourself, you were in, within the last year with WWE on TV. It's also good for you to have that bridge open for you in case they make the call, say, hey, we want to work with you. It's also nice to have that on your attire, to have the House of Hardcore logo. You're a little walking building for yourself, and you're back on WWE programming.
Right. And, a lot of people know I was asked to go back there kind of full-time when I went back there last year into earlier this year. I wasn't under contract. I really couldn't just sign a contract back with WWE and pretty much get rid of House of Hardcore. So I'm staying put. As I stole it from the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm all in, especially with the indie show, with the Cleveland show.
Yeah.
And I'm all in. I gave up a lot of money, and if I succeed, I succeed because I put together a great team. If I fail because of myself, and I'm okay with that.
I know House of Hardcore, like I said, I've never been to a show, and the indie scene is, I don't want to say saturated, but there's a lot of promotions, indie scene, that a lot of different shows fans can choose from to spend their hard-earned money, from $20 to $30 for a ticket. I know you're well known. You bring in guys who are well known. You're bringing in some talent that is established. So how do you maybe set your show apart from maybe an AIW show or another local show that maybe that same weekend or the weekend after that? Fans, okay, they're on a tight budget. Why would they come spend $20, $30 for your show over another indie show then?
Well, one, I actually contacted the guy from AIW, told him that I was thinking of doing it, and he had said he actually had the month off because I've never worked there, but we all can get along. I don't like that indie crap where it's it's my company or that's BS. As well as what sets me up different, I would like to say, is if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to come to my show and you're going to see something. You're seeing my vision, of crazy wrestling. But you know what? It's still, I look at it as sports. I'm a huge sports guy. The whatchamacallit just beat the Eagles, just beat the living crap out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, everyone thought was going to walk all over the Eagles. It was a different game. It was a different day. Guess what? If you're a Steelers fan, you're pretty pissed. But then next week, here comes the Steelers. They're playing somebody else. I can't use the Browns as a reference because the Browns are having a horrible season and they're cursed. So, but you know what? There's people always still go to the Browns games and they're hopeful their Browns will win. And for me, I have that kind of mindset as well as, I put together a card that I know I want to see, and straight up, that show in Cleveland, it's making history. And I don't care what happens before or after. The last time this ever happened was there was a contracted wrestler from WCW, Mike Awesome, fought a contracted wrestler from WWE who was Taz, and Tommy Dreamer was there. That happened in Indianapolis. You're seeing that. You have a contracted wrestler in TNA with Ethan Carter, a contracted wrestler with WWE,
Unknown
Rhino, and myself. We're all wrestling the three-way. That will never happen ever again. And me, my whole thing is no politics, BS, just wrestling. That's that type of match. We're putting all politics aside, and you're going to go out there and see something that you probably will never see ever in the history of wrestling. So, cool. And if you're there, you can say you're a part of history. And if you're not, guess what? Then you miss out. My other thing is I'm looking to establish my company and spreading out the brand. I'm not running there next month. I'm not running there in the next 2 months. I'm not running there in 3 months. If I come back to Cleveland, I'm coming back. All I want to go to is a different town once a year.
Yeah.
That's it. And you can have all your regular stuff going on, but note, here comes this one company, and it's only here once a year, so I need to be to it.
In the Odeon, which has history, reopened here in Cleveland. I know, you're not from the area, but it has a lot of history here, and it's great to see wrestling back in that building too.
I mean, I remember from my times at, what was it, the Agora Theater,
Yeah.
and which in the back, if anyone's ever been there, is totally, man, what is Spinal Tap? You get lost in that back if you're a wrestler trying to find the entranceway to the thing. I wanted to actually go there. Building was a little bit too costly, so this building came along, and I was like, you know what, we're going to try it out.
Yeah.
And everything has to fit for a reason. It all really jokingly started where I was like, hey, if the Cavaliers win, I'll bring House of Hardcore there. Boom, that's kind of how that. And then same thing with the Penguins. I put it out there, hey, if the Penguins win, I'm going to bring House of Hardcore there. And these are also places that Tommy Dreamer, ECW have all been a mainstay with. So, kind of, again, everything fit. All the pieces came together. So I'm happy to be there. And
I say this on the show a lot with a lot of the different talent from Cleveland, EC3, Miz, Ziggler, Dana Brooke, Matt Cross, Johnny Gargano. I mean, the Cleveland has a lot of guys who made their mark in the indie, but also is now with WWE, the big company. I think has to be right up there with one of the top wrestling cities in the country, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I used to love when ECW used to come there because it was a great wrestling town. And I mean, hell, I tore my pec, bicep, and shoulder right there in Cleveland. I actually spent the night in the hospital. I watched a man die next to me. He got shot in the hospital, and I was in a horrible neighborhood, but the people everyone came to see me like, hey, you're Tommy Dreamer, you okay, blah, blah, blah. But it is a great wrestling town. I always remembered those awesome Cleveland crowds, and we would give them pure chaos every single time we came. I mean, it was an amazing time every time we went there. So, I'm happy to bring. It's kind of like I've gone full circle. And yes, there are some amazing, talented wrestlers that have come out of there, as well as there's going to be more. And also, to answer your question before, because you reminded me, Matt Cross, another guy who's off the charts. I've been a big fan of his work for quite some time. He's even told me he hasn't wrestled in Cleveland in forever. And because he's also been booked so much. And when he said he'd like to wrestle Tony Nese, and I was just like, man, that's an amazing matchup. And that's the first time ever. So again, it's just, hey, here you get to see something that you haven't seen in a long, long time.
For you, obviously, you were involved with the ECW back in the day, but the business has changed dramatically since then. But what is the hardest thing for you, being a wrestler and also a promoter? What is the hardest thing, being a promoter for a, active wrestling, company that gets recognition on a daily basis?
I think the hardest part, me being a promoter, personally, I hate doing everybody's travel. I hope my company gets even bigger, because I'm going to probably be the first person to hire a travel agent. And main thing is, this is my money. This is not, I'm not a publicly traded company. I'm not a famous rock and roll star. My parents don't own an energy company. This is the money that I made wrestling, as well as, I literally broke my neck and my back wrestling. And this is the money that I did breaking my back and neck. And I have 2 daughters that I have, sometimes risk of their future, but I'm in this as a business as well. And, I've always said the moment I lose money, I can't do this. I'm not going to, risk my family's future. And every single thing you do has a price tag on it. And it's a big, I ran the WWE's developmental system, and I had to keep and watch budgets. When it's your own money, as simple as a table. When you want to buy a table to break it, note that you're probably paying $185 to break something. And then you seriously, as a wrestler, it's like, oh man, that's great. But then as a promoter, you're like, that just cost me almost $200 to break. Was it worth it?
Yeah.
So those are little things like that. And, a lot of people have asked me a similar question, and it's, one, I like to pay everyone as soon as, before the show even starts. And if you don't have the money up front and never rely on the gate to to pay your talent. If you're going to take a hit, you take a hit. If you're going to take a profit, you take a profit. But when people, I don't want to say a lot of fly-by-nights, but people look to, I want to become a wrestling promoter. I want to do this. Okay, here's my building. My building costs X amount of dollars. Now I need a ring. Now I need insurance. Now I need, some buildings you have to bring in chairs. Do all that math before you even say, this is how much I have to make, even before I sell one ticket. And hey, guess what? I'm $4,000 in the hole between rent, insurance, chairs, and a ring. If I'm charging $10 a head, start doing math.
Yeah.
So it's a business. Don't go in like, oh, I want to be a wrestling, promoter, and I want to hear people chant my name, or, this company's awesome, whatever they chant. It's business. And if you have money to piss away, great. If you don't, look at it as a business.
I know recently you had Terry Funk at your show, and he wasn't feeling too well and whatnot. Terry's been on the show before. I love Terry Funk just as a fan and personally. But how is he doing? Have you talked to him lately? Is he doing okay?
Of course. And
yeah.
The best part about it was, that video went viral of me. I wanted him to basically, the one thing, and you said it earlier, when guys get released from WWE, people just think that it's over, you're done, you're not wrestling. I still get it on social media, like, wow, you're still wrestling? I was like, yes, I did, 180 dates, I have my own company, blah, blah, blah. I've given a lot of farewells to wrestlers, and I feel fans need that final goodbye. I was blessed, man. WWE gave me a wonderful send-off. And yes, I went back, but that was for, Tommy Dreamer's farewell to ECW. I think as a man, I went to Vince and said, hey, listen, I'm not happy anymore. And for him to do that to me is awesome. As well as, I watch Hard Knocks. There's people where, hey, we're going to let you go. They say it face to face. They have a nice little, meeting. They have a talk, and then, the guy find another place. For Terry Funk, I told him the week of, hey man, if you can't get on the plane or if you don't want to come, he's like, no, I'll be there. He had a heart surgery, and he was still going to be there. He was very, very, I don't want people, I can't do much. He wasn't allowed to sit and stand, which I had to actually put a policeman on him to make sure he's stand for the fans, but that's just Terry. You're looking at a 72-year-old man whose father passed away in the ring, and he was there. So Terry loves this business, and for him to even come is homage to how much he loves this business, and I wanted it. I even told him, hey, man, you don't even have to get in the ring. I'll bring the microphone to you. And, of course, he gets into the ring because he's Terry Funk.
Yeah.
But I wanted him to have that, as well as I wanted the fans to have that. Because if you're a fan of Terry Funk's, you get it, and you get him, and this business would so be different if Terry Funk was not in this business. And I know what he did for me personally. I know what he did for ECW, as well as what he's done for this business, and for his love and passion to come true, and just, and he said it so nicely, and it's just, I know I don't want to get out of this ring because I never want to leave it. And, it was an amazing thing, and he was very, very happy he was able to do it. And then, of course, in true Terry Funk fashion, the next day he was taking my phone call, other people's phone calls, and he was acting like he was dying. And he's like, everyone's calling me, wishing me, thinking that I'm dead. I'm okay. I'm all right. But get a 72-year-old man, get on a 6 a.m. flight, 2 flights. Then he landed in New York. We had an event on that Friday in New York, and then he went from New York to Philly, got in late, and then he was at a convention all day, and then he was at the show at night. And then, we had an early flight. That's his commitment to this business. And but for me, I wanted to do that, and I couldn't have been happier with the beauty of independent wrestling, the beauty of kind of what I'm used to. You speak from the heart. No one hands you a script. And if you go back there and watch that, you watch a man who spent his entire life in this business, and you just watch pure passion. And I mean, I even saw what he did when he came to AIW. And, I heard the backstories because I'm friends with Eddie Kingston. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, oh, he's just supposed to do this one little thing. And then here he is throwing chairs, being a friggin' maniac because that's Terry Funk.
It's amazing. And I've been a lifetime, fan. I love the old school wrestling. Love Lawler, Funk, Memphis, styles, Deep South. It's just, I love that. I'm only 33. So, I grew up Attitude Era. That's when I, first got into wrestling, but I love the old school stuff. So it's being able to, and that's what's cool about the indie scene. And I do some commentary for AIW. So it was cool to be in the locker room and have a beer with Terry Funk, and he's cussing, telling stories, nasty stories with the guys, and it's surreal. And to have him, who's done it all in the business, be able to sit there, have a beer, not worried about getting out of there or just going to his hotel, being by himself. I meet guys that are the opposite and don't want to talk and just want to get their money, perform, and leave. It's awesome, man. The Terry Funk is just amazing.
They broke the mold when they made him. And, we talk about the history of the business. I'm a big fan of this business. And actually, when WWE was asking me to come back, I talked to Terry, asked him for some advice, and he actually remembered the first thing he ever, when I was struggling to get over, he remembered our exact conversation. And I was just like, I actually started crying because I couldn't believe how much he remembered. He still watches the current product. Some days he hates it. Some days he loves it. And I was like, guess what? That's what everyone does. But if you think about Terry Funk in this business, I read Bob Backlund's book, and Bob Backlund said Terry Funk came as the Indie World Champion and saw me wrestle and asked me for my number and told me, one day I'm going to give you a call. One day he gave him a call. And he was the first person to see something in Bob Backlund. He was the one who told Hulk Hogan to call Vince McMahon for Hulkamania. He was the one who, discovered Stan Hansen. He discovered Ted DiBiase. He discovered all these different guys. And I'm like, wow, how one man has affected an entire wrestling industry is amazing.
We know obviously there's a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. There should be a 6 degrees of Terry Funk.
Absolutely.
You can connect.
The funny thing is when I was telling him, he was just like, hey, just be yourself when you're out there. You have a likable quality. And this is what, again, in ECW, and we recant that story, and I'm telling it. I actually told him, I said, man, think of all these guys that you helped. And then, and I said, and he also told me, and grow a goatee, you have a pretty boy face, but if you grow a goatee, you'll look tougher. And then when you're my age, you'll use it to hide your double chin. And I was like, Terry, guess what? I'm now your age, and I have a full beard because that's how much of a double chin I have. And he's like, I have 3 chins. But I was like, you were even right. You predicted the future.
And we talk about Terry, and obviously he's one part of wrestling that is right. I mean, there's a lot of wrong, and I know we can talk for hours about what's wrong and what's right. But give me one thing that's right about professional wrestling in 2016, and give me one thing that's wrong with professional wrestling in 2016.
That's a good question.
It doesn't have to be WWE. I mean, it's open to anything. It's open to wrestling
like you said,
in general.
the indies are thriving, which is good. So that is something that's right. And if me being a historian of the business as well, if you think about it, at one point there was a territory in every state had wrestling. So you think about there was wrestlers wrestling anywhere from 5 to 7 nights a week, making a living. So that's kind of awesome if you're a professional wrestler. And then, Vince came in and ate all that up. But where did those wrestling fans go? Nowhere. As well as where do those wrestlers go? Nowhere. They're still out there wrestling. And now you do have that kind of resurgence. I don't think territorial wrestling would ever kick back up, but you have where guys can wrestle. Hey, I could wrestle here this week. I could wrestle here that week. I could wrestle here that week. And that's how that continues. So I'd say that would be what's right in the state of professional wrestling. If it was talking WWE, what's right in WWE, I'd say Kevin Owens is the heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
I think that's right. When you talked about TNA, I would say Matt Hardy and the whole reinventing himself.
It's amazing.
I think Matt is probably the most over star in wrestling right now. I don't watch Ring of Honor or Lucha Underground, but they have their own fan bases, so that is all that's right in the world. What's wrong with indie wrestling? That there are still some places where wrestlers will go out there and promoters won't pay them, and or promoters run out of them, or promoters book shows that don't happen. Nowadays, if you're a wrestler, you need to get deposits. You need to or just call out those people on social media and spread the word so other wrestlers don't get duped on that. For WWE, it depends on the day. What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
It depends on what I see. And not crapping on the product, but sometimes it changes altogether.
Yeah.
TNA has their own inner issues. Don't want to crap upon that. And that's that.
It's
How about this? The worst part about all those things is, I guess, at times social media, because you can say something, and if it picks up enough credibility or something, then people start thinking it as a fact, when it particularly doesn't have to be a fact. I know, myself, when I was with TNA, and everyone's like, oh, everyone's owed money, all this stuff. I was never owed money, but because somebody says it on the internet, then everyone must think it is true. So that'll be my negative towards the bad things.
What did before a couple more questions? We wrap it up. Is there, you being a promoter, did you ask Vince at all for advice, or no?
No.
No.
I mean, this is kind of the natural progression for me. I did so much in the original ECW, and ran shows and ran TV, ran pay-per-views. Sometimes with Paul, sometimes even without Paul. Then when I was in WWE, just being a wrestler, and then, running 2 developmental systems. So it's, kind of easy in that regard. And, I wrote One Night Stand 2005.
Yeah.
The first one. And, I was very much involved with budgets and all that stuff. I wrote Hardcore Justice for TNA, and same thing, like I had a budget, all that stuff. So, no, that was all kind. But, I mean, I've said this many, many times before, besides my own father, Vince McMahon is one of the most influential men in my life, because this is all I've ever wanted to do since I was 9 years old. And if it wasn't, for me hearing his voice and seeing Bob Backlund wrestling at Madison Square Garden, I don't know where my life would have taken me, but I was hooked since then, and I'm still hooked.
Final question. Let's play some word association. I'm going to give you a name. I have 6 names here, and I want you to give me the first word that pops in when you hear this person's name. All right?
Okay. Yep.
All right. Let's go to your opponents here in Cleveland, like you mentioned earlier on. Let's go with EC3.
An amazing, I got to say one word?
You can give me a sentence. You can do whatever you want. You're Tommy Dreamer.
I always saw talent in him. I helped get him where he was going, first with WWE. And, for my own company, this is Rhino's last 2 indie shows. And I said, what House of Hardcore's loss will be SmackDown's gain. Ethan Carter was in WWE, and what their loss became TNA's gain, because he was an off-the-charts heel for TNA and really carried that company through some bad times. But I'd seen him on an indie show a long, long time ago, and I would bring him in as an extra, and I was always a big fan of his.
All right, let's go with Rhino.
Gore, gore, gore. I guess that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah. How about I mean, you add in, political too. The whole political stamp. He can gore you and he can take you on in office too.
Yep.
How about Paul Heyman?
Insane genius and craziest person of all time in professional wrestling. He's the top. He's the number one. I have a list, and he's number one.
And there, I mean, obviously, I had Danny Doring on, who was going to be at House of Hardcore. He's not really too high on Paul Heyman. And when you hear people like that who are open about it, obviously, whatever the reason is, because obviously I wasn't there, but not getting paid or just whatever. When you hear stuff like that, do you stick up for Paul, or is it just like, hey, it's your own issues, that's your own thinking?
One, a lot of people, are, hey, I wasn't getting paid. And yes, Paul did screw over a lot of people, but for some, that you chose to stay. And if you choose to stay, then it is what it is. I get a lot of what Paul Heyman had to do in order to survive. And I had a whole kind of revelation, because no one got screwed over more than me. But it was when Paul Heyman went up for his job review with Vince, and I got it. And it was just, I don't harbor any grudges towards him whatsoever. If I owed people money, I would have went out of my way and paid every single person that I owed money to. So, but that's me. And, I've seen people who hated Paul. Oh, next time I see Paul, I'm going to beat the shit out of him. And no one ever does. So there's a lot of that in wrestling, dude. I see it so much. People bash each other on social media. Oh, I'll kick his ass. And then they'll go and see each other on, at a convention or a show, and nothing happens. If I have an issue with somebody, I would like to try to settle it. As a man, let's talk face to face. And if not, hey, let's fight. I don't mind fighting you. But most people don't do that.
Yeah.
It was Bubba Ray Dudley who graciously said there's a lot of cunts in pro wrestling, and there are.
Vince McMahon.
He is the business.
Yeah. How about, I didn't expect to talk about Terry Funk so much, but he was on my list. Terry Funk.
One and only.
And final, two guys actually you're very familiar with, the Dudley Boys.
Greatest tag team of all time.
Tommy, it's an honor and a pleasure to talk with you, interview you. Look forward to seeing you at House of Hardcore. Go to houseofhardcore.net, and like Danny and I talked about, do not go to houseofhardcore.com for many reasons. Houseofhardcore.net is the website. Friday, October 14th at the Odeon House of Hardcore here in Cleveland, Ohio. Tommy Dreamer, like I said, honor and a pleasure talking with you, man.
Thanks for having me, man.